I wasn't supposed to be there past closing. Malls are daytime creatures, made of noise and light, full of footsteps and chatter and music that floats between stores. But I lingered too long. A bookstore had called me in with a table of paperbacks, and I lost track of time flipping through their pages. When I finally set the book down, the store lights had already dimmed and the cashier was gone. The mall itself was folding into evening. The air in a mall after hours feels different. It loses the perfume of cinnamon rolls and soft pretzels, and what remains is carpet, glass, and faint echoes of 1,000 conversations. I stepped into the wide corridor, my shoes whispering against the tiles. The overhead lamps had dimmed, leaving pools of light broken by shadows. Escalators hummed quietly, though no one rode them. A few television screens glowed with looping ads, their sound turned low, their colors moving silently across walls. I walked toward the main entrance. The metal gates had already been pulled down in a ripple of silver teeth. I pulled gently at one. It rattled but held. Beyond it, I could see the parking lot, wide and pale under the lamps, but unreachable. The mall had sealed itself for the night. The announcement came a moment later, confirming what I already knew. The mall is now closed. Please make your way to the exits. The voice was friendly, certain, the kind of voice that assumes you'll do as it says. But the exits were already shut. I laughed quietly to myself. Fear didn't come right away, only a soft curiosity. The mall was vast, and I was its only visitor. The air carried a hum that wasn't quite silence. 100 machines ticking over, 1,000 lights on low power, the faint mechanical heartbeats of escalators and elevators and air handlers. The sound of a giant place at rest. I turned back toward the center court, where fountains had been turned off, their bowls empty and echoing. Benches sat like islands, waiting for footsteps that wouldn't come. A single balloon drifted along the ceiling, left behind by some child, bobbing faintly in the still air. The mall was empty, almost empty. Empty in the way a room is empty when someone has just stepped out. I sat on a bench near the fountain. My reflection wavered in the dry tiles, broken by cracks in the grout. Overhead, a skylight framed the night sky, black glass reflecting blacker space. A faint wind passed through, though no door had opened. I shivered and pulled my jacket closer. The air smelled of electricity and old perfume. Then came the sound. A squeak, soft but clear, from the far end of the hall. I turned. One of the mannequins in a window display had shifted just slightly. Its hand was tilted at a new angle, fingers curled differently than before. I blinked, looked again. Perhaps I was wrong. Perhaps I had remembered it incorrectly. But the mannequin's shadow seemed to lean in a new direction, across the spotless floor. I stood, walked closer, the sound of my own shoes loud now in the cavernous quiet. The display was a summer scene. Plastic grass, a beach chair, a bright towel. 2 mannequins wore swimsuits, their blank faces turned toward nothing. But one of their arms rested differently against the chair. The more I stared, the more certain I became. Something had shifted in the silence. A soft chime echoed overhead, the kind of sound you hear before an announcement. But no voice followed, only silence, deeper now, waiting for me to move. I turned away from the window and walked back toward the escalator. It was running, metal steps cycling endlessly, though no one had pressed a button. The handrail moved smoothly, black against silver. I watched it turn and turn, carrying nothing at all. I placed a hand on the moving rail. It was warm, as if someone had just ridden it. The steps clanked softly, echoing up into the higher levels. I let go and listened. From above came a faint sound. Music, distant, like a song leaking through a closed door. Tinny, warped, the kind of melody that malls play to fill the air, now distorted by empty space. I climbed the escalator slowly, each step giving back a hollow clang. At the top, the corridor stretched long and dark, lined with shuttered shops. Their gates were pulled down, metal teeth pressed together. But behind one, faint light spilled out. I stepped closer. The shop was a clothing store, racks of dresses and jackets, standing in neat rows. A speaker inside hissed softly, as though trying to remember a song. Between the racks, something moved. Not quickly, not sharply. Just a sway. A suggestion of presence. I stood at the gate, peering in. The racks were still now, as though they had only breathed once and returned to silence. My reflection in the glass was pale, uncertain. I reached out and touched the gate. It rattled, just like the others, firm and final. I let it go and stepped back. Behind me, another sound. A coin hitting tile, rolling in a circle before falling flat. I turned. Nothing. The floor was bare. My breath came slow, steady, matching the rhythm of the escalator hum. I moved on, past shuttered stores, past advertisements frozen in cheerful invitation. Faces of models smiled with teeth too white for night. At the far end of the corridor, I reached the food court. Chairs were stacked on tables, trays lined up neatly. The soda machines hummed with quiet patience, their lights blinking in green and red. A straw wrapper skittered across the floor, though no air stirred. I sat at one of the stacked tables and looked around. The food court felt like a town square after evacuation, a place where noise had been pressed flat and carried away. Then, faintly, the smell of fries. Fresh, hot, greasy. Impossible. I rose and followed it. One of the counters glowed with light, though its sign was dark. A fryer basket hung above oil that shimmered faintly. No staff. No movement, only the smell, sharp and warm, curling into the air. My stomach tightened. I stepped back. The light blinked once and died. The smell faded as quickly as it came, leaving only the metallic scent of machines cooling. I wandered the upper level. The mall skylights cast faint silver from the night sky. Benches stood like guardians, each one carrying echoes of waiting. A soft tapping followed me. I turned, saw nothing. I walked faster. The tapping matched me, step for step, always just behind, never ahead. I stopped. It stopped. The silence swelled. In the toy store window, plush animals sat in tidy rows. But one, a bear with a bow, had turned its head, just slightly. Its glass eyes caught the faintest glow and seemed to watch me. I moved closer, staring into its stitched smile. The longer I looked, the less certain I became that it had ever faced another way. Still, when I moved on, I felt its gaze follow me, slow and patient. The mall had become a stage. Every corner waited for me to notice it. Every shadow leaned closer when I passed. The whispering began then. Not words, not yet. Just the sound of voices carried too far to understand, overlapping, rising and falling like a crowd before a concert. I paused at the railing, looked down into the central court. Empty. Still. Yet the sound remained, curling up from the floor, filling the air with the memory of people who were not there. I closed my eyes. The sound did not fade. It swelled, filling my chest, pressing into my ears. When I opened them again, the balloon I'd seen earlier was lower now, bobbing near the benches. It had moved without me watching. I whispered, "Hello," though I knew no one would answer. And yet, the mall seemed to sigh. The escalators paused. The music stopped. For a moment, there was only stillness, heavy and complete. Then the fountain below sputtered once, as though trying to breathe water again, and fell silent. Hours passed, or minutes. Time lost its shape. I wandered the corridors, finding small shifts each time I returned. Mannequins with new poses, chairs angled differently, lights glowing that had been dark before. The mall was rearranging itself in quiet, patient ways, as if rehearsing for a performance I would never see. Near dawn, the skylights began to pale. The dark glass softened, hinting at morning. The whispering faded. The escalators slowed to a stop. The balloon drifted higher, toward the ceiling once more. The mall released a long, low breath, the kind a sleeper makes before waking. A lock clicked somewhere near the front doors. I walked back through the corridors, past mannequins who had resumed their first positions, past shops that looked exactly as they had hours before. The gates still rattled when I touched them, but the sound felt different now, less final, more like a farewell. At the entrance, the silver grill had risen. Beyond it, the parking lot lay empty, waiting. I stepped outside. The morning air was cool, fresh. Behind me, the mall stood silent, its windows dark, its machines quiet. I looked back once at the glass reflecting the pale sky. Nothing moved inside. And yet, I felt watched. Not with malice, but with the curiosity of a place that had kept me for a night and was now letting me go. I whispered, "Thank you," to the doors and turned toward the rising sun. The world outside was waking. Cars began to arrive. Somewhere inside the mall, the machines prepared to hum again, the lights to brighten, the escalators to carry people upward. But I had seen the mall's other self, the one that lives between closing and dawn, when mannequins stretch, escalators breathe, and silence becomes a story all its own. And as I walked away, I carried that story with me, a quiet reminder that even the most ordinary places have nights they keep secret, nights when the world rearranges itself just enough to remind you that you are not the only thing awake in the dark.